So for right now, we're going to transition and just welcome some of our alumni. So I'm going to introduce to you Hilary Garman. She's a senior at SPU and graduated from here 4 years ago. So let's welcome her.
And from the class of 2014, will you please welcome Noah Holmes and Kemper McQuaid. And part of this chapel is we just wanted to invite a couple alumni back to kind of talk to you guys about what life is like after high school. So we're going to turn the mic over to Bennett and Abby, and they are going to lead a discussion and ask some questions.
All right, so me and Abby have a bunch of questions here that we'd like to ask you guys, and I guess I'll just start out so all of you can answer this. What was the hardest part for all of you in the transition from high school into college?
For me, it was probably time management skills. Not that I was good in high school, time management, because I wasn't. But in high school, it's very structured. You have sports practice and got class. In college, you have 3 hours of class a day, and you just have the rest of the day open. So there's so many things that I could do with my time, and it was hard for me to kind of prioritize what's the most important and like what I should be spending my time doing.
For me, I think I had a really good transition into college life, and I loved it from the start. And I think that was it was different than like my older sister, and so my parents were kind of used to like my older sister calling a bunch and like wanting to like come home. And for me, it was like, all right, see you guys at Thanksgiving, even though I'm at UW and like 20 minutes away. So I think that was hard of like trying to find a balance of like, how often do I call my mom and dad? How often do I go home for dinner? Because I want to be independent, but I still also love my family and I want to be with them. And so I think it was a little bit more difficult for them and me of like kind of trying to figure out where we need to be in communication and like kind of being on our own and whatnot. So.
Yeah, happy being first seniors first, and I think for me it was just kind of expectations. I went into college just like, it's kind of like the honeymoon phase where everything is so new and there's so many awesome people around you, and you just after a while like everything kind of starts to settle down and then you find your niche, but it's still like trying to figure out like where that niche was. And I think the challenge for me was like having so many of these niches and like figuring out like for myself like which direction I needed to belong and where I needed to be and where I felt comfortable.
What was the biggest challenge within your faith post-high school? So like, how did that play in college?
Well, for me, I'm very fortunate to live in a place. I live in a Christian guy's house. So there's like 56 guys living in a house. And not that like everybody's on the same faith level, but I'm very fortunate to be around some guys who are very like strong in their faith. And they challenged me in my faith in a way that I'd never been challenged before. It was just kind of constant questions of like, why do you actually believe that? Like, what do you think about this? And like, what are your core values that I kind of took for granted with my parents and with what I'd kind of been brought up, and nobody really challenged it until I got there. And they guys were just really like curious and like wanting to challenge us in that ways, for when other people would ask who don't have like a faith or know anything about it and ask those questions, that we'd be able to answer that. And I think that kind of carried over into like things like my English class at UW. The class topic literally just went through like every single thing in Christianity that's like controversial, whether you believe or not, like homosexuality, like feminism, and just like slavery in the Bible, and like just all that stuff. Like, and I was just kind of like, I remember the first day in class, I like read the syllabus, and I'm just like, oh crap, like everybody's gonna hate me in this class because I'm gonna say some things that aren't popular. But so I think it's just like it's a little difficult, like at first, of like being challenged and not being around all the same people that I've been around since 4th grade.
For me, I live with Noah, so a lot of the same things. Challenges, people challenging you, but also living in a house with a bunch of Christian guys, it's easy to like become complacent and, you know, think that you're like above reproach because you live in a Christian house. But it's been a challenge for me to constantly kind of try to push myself to continue to pursue Jesus, because in a place like that, it's so like it's around you everywhere, and so you don't often think like that you need to kind of like continue in your walk. So yeah, that's something for me.
So when I grew up in a really small church that met inside of a larger church. So going to a Christian school, there was a lot of people from a lot of different church denominations, a lot of different backgrounds, and for me it was just that new exposure to just these mega churches, and then trying to find my own church and my own community. I went church shopping a lot, just trying to find my niche, and it ended up being just a really small group of girls who we just met every Sunday and had like talks about the Bible, and just everyone kind of came from a different background, but it was just the community that we found in the residence halls on my floor that just kind of served as an outlet for a really strong community of women who just went through that. And yeah, just over the course of the 4 years, like it's been really good to learn just about how churches are and like where a good church community would be, from just some churches being planted and then some mega churches breaking up. It's just been a really neat opportunity just to experience community and just how that reflects in the larger city about which churches to belong.
Cool. So, I mean, obviously for you guys, Kemper and Noah, you guys live together, so it's been really easy for you to maintain your friendship after high school. But as far as your other high school friends go, has it been a challenge to maintain those friendships as you've moved on to the next stage of your life?
I would say definitely yes. And like, just like kind of along with this question, I just think it's a good idea. So like Kemper and I, like moving into the same house, being best friends in high school, we were kind of worried about like, okay, we don't want to come in and being like, okay, like there's Kemper and Noah. Kemper and Noah are always together. Like they don't like want to break out from each other. So I think going to college with a friend from high school or like rooming together, I think that can be an awesome opportunity. You can grow so much closer together like we have, but I think it's, you need to maintain an effort of going beyond just each other and looking to dive into relationships with other people. And so that's just doesn't, it kind of has to do with the question. But then talking about like keeping up with high school friends, yeah, so I had some really good friends in high school that honestly I don't really talk to anymore. It's really sad. And like, as I say that, I don't know, kind of sucks a little bit, but for me, I kind of learned a little bit, like some of those good friends that I had, like we really weren't that close of friends compared to like some of the people I've met at college. And it creates, and it's just like a lot of work to be able to maintain the friendships, and you kind of like start like subconsciously like, okay, like our friendship wasn't that deep, and I'm not really putting in effort to, I don't really want to put in that effort to maintain that friendship. And so there's been like one of my really good friends at high school, he goes to UW, we don't live together, but I've seen him once since being at UW, like, and we were really good friends in high school. But then there's some people who went to California and I talk to on a weekly basis. And so it really just depends on like who you want to keep that relationship with, because you're not going to be able to keep it with everybody.
Yeah, I think very similar to Noah, and I think it's important that those people that you do like want to stay in relationships for people going off to college, like it is very important to be intentional with them and like really like make an effort to like reach out to them, because it's not a natural, that's always a natural thing to like text them or call them if they're in a different state than you. But it's really valuable if you do, and if you keep those friendships, and it's for the friendships that I have kept, it's very, I really enjoy it, talking to them, even though I don't see them almost ever.
Yeah. So Olivia Bessel, who's Jonah and Peter's older sister, and I were pretty good friends in high school, and she ended up going to Wazoo, and I went to SPU, and we didn't really talk that much, and so there's these times where you just kind of come up and you're like, man, I really want to like talk to someone from high school, like I want to like catch up with someone, and just based on like how mutual that friendship is, just kind of is a good indicator to like how you are now. So I just messaged her like over break, be like, hey, are you in town? Like, let's go grab coffee. And we got coffee, then eventually got dinner. And so it is possible just after 3.5, 4 years of not talking to anyone, if you just like, depending on how like welcoming they were back in high school, they will still be just as welcoming, because although you do change, there are some fundamentals within you, within your faith, that still remain the same even after those 3-4 years.
So going off of that, like what is one thing you've learned about yourself, for you, Hilary, for like for college as a whole, and then for the guys, one thing you've learned in this first year?
Yeah, I think it's hard to like really focus down on one key thing that has changed in me like over the last 4 years. And one thing I've learned is just how much you change, and who you walk in as a freshman is not who you're going to leave as a senior. And your interests change, your relationships change. I think a lot, my parents kind of instilled a kind of idea of what college was, that you're going to meet your college best friend, when instead I feel like I've met a community of friends that I share life with now, and who I know that like 5 years, 10 years from now, like once our dynamic of our friendship changes, I'm still going to be able to contact them and be like, hey, like let's grab coffee. Oh, you're back in Seattle, I'm in Seattle, like let's get together. So it's not necessarily that I have like one key person that is going to be my maid of honor at my wedding eventually down the road. I feel like I'm going to have a community of people who I'm going to be able to contact.
For me, one thing that I've learned is, at Bellevue Christian and like growing up in the church, I didn't really have a lot of friends that weren't Christian, and like didn't really hang around any crowd that like didn't have the same beliefs as me. And going to college and like living right on Greek Row and like meeting people in classes, I've met a lot of other people that aren't like-minded as me, and can have a really like hurt and broken life. And I've also started leading Young Life at Chief Salt High School, which is in White Center. So it's a very low poverty area. And so I've just kind of learned about loving people through their sin, and loving people not because you're better than them, but because Jesus loved them first and Jesus loved you first. And that's just been a huge impact on my life, of just being able to be friends with people who aren't like-minded, and being able to love them through what they're doing and what they're going through. And maybe not saying it's okay, like what you're doing, but like not like shunning them because of what they've done or what they're doing. I think college is a really amazing time of where you're going to meet people that are going to just do things that you didn't even think was like people would want to do. And I think like for me, I've learned just so much about how to love people through that sin, and because that's what Jesus did for us, and that's what Jesus is doing for them. And so that's just a very like thing that kind of hit me pretty hard, especially winter quarter, with just some different friends. So.
Yeah, one thing I've learned is that like I've got a long way to go. Like I've got a lot to learn. Being in a house with 55 guys, they're especially in a UW, everybody is really, really good at something, and it's incredible to see like how talented, how smart, like how well along people are in their faith. And I don't know, it's mind blowing to me that like some people, or that like I will hopefully kind of be where they are in 4 years, or at least on my way there. So I think that just kind of learning that and seeing like how other people have progressed kind of helps me to like continue to move forward with the things that I'm doing.
So how have your experiences when you were at BCS going to a Christian high school been beneficial to you after you left and post-high school?
I think just to echo off of what Noah said, just learning how to love people unconditionally really sets you apart from a lot of your peers because of the way that you're able to approach them on an honest to goodness basis, where you're just able to just come in and like talk to them about like what their life is at and where they're at, and just regardless of like kind of how they like the choices that they make, just still be able to like see the good in them and see that they are see the God in them, and seeing that you are in relationship with them as you are in relationship with God, and just having that preemptive idea of that faith background, it just helps you connect to other people on a much intimate basis, I think, for me.
Yeah, I would say going to a Christian school was a really good experience for me. I loved it here. I think the community that came out of it was extremely important and helpful to me, and it made me seek out community like that at college through different facets, just because you don't really realize the community we have here until you're removed from it, and then you just kind of find yourself thirsty for it again. And so I think it really gave me a good example of what a Christ-centered community looks like and how that functions, and it makes me want to have that in my life for wherever I go.
Yeah, I'd say yes and no. I think I agree with Noah. The community here is special and unique, and also the teachers doing a great job of preparing you for college. I came to college, I was surprised at how well along I was, and like compared to all the other like people I was in class with. But I do think that one thing that was harder is that this was such a good community, and I felt so comfortable that I didn't really get out of my comfort zone very often. And going to college, there are many, many instances where you kind of have to push outside of yourself and stuff that you're used to. So I'd say it has been very beneficial, but it's also set me up for kind of branching out. Like, I establish a community in college, and then from there I'm able to like push myself and branch out.
Yeah, so off of the things that are harder, like what are some of the hardest parts and easiest parts of the responsibility of like being an adult and being in college and all that stuff?
I don't really feel like I have responsibility of the adult. No, I think it's definitely like, there's like the obvious things like laundry and like things like that you got to figure out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, there's probably a couple too many days on these jeans right now. So no, but I still go home to do laundry. No, but I think it's definitely different. Like, you kind of like, when your parents leave for the first time, you kind of sit there and you're like, I could literally do whatever I wanted and nobody's gonna care. Like, I can go do whatever. And so it's just like finding that area of like, okay, like, what do I want to do? Like, how am I going to manage my time? Like, I've got school, and I've got my friends, and I've got like these responsibilities that I have. Like, and so it's just like this whole balancing act that you need to figure out. And like, you're going to like mess up in the first quarter or two in the first year, and you just need to kind of give yourself some slack with that, because it's definitely hard being away for the first time, and just kind of like, it's just very like different. And like the first week is just so weird. Just like, I'll be like gonna go out, like hang out with friends on like a Friday night. I'm like, oh, I should text my mom. Wait a minute, I don't need to text my mom where I'm going. Like, it's fine. And so it's just like, it's definitely a different change, but I think it's a good change.
Yeah, I also, don't really feel like an adult. I know me and Noah are answering the same questions, a lot of the same. But, so, yeah, I mean, get meals made for me, which is probably like the biggest thing that's like the best about college. But it's, I don't know, I'm glad that the transition is slower into being an adult. At least I feel like it is, because it's definitely a big, like, it's very hard to handle a bunch of responsibility put on your plate at once. Like for me, like even the responsibility of having to go to class at 8:30 in the morning, which is now, for high schoolers, it seems very normal, but in college, like, that's the worst. It's even just having to do that, and having class, and then having homework, and then having your social life, without it being planned out for you, is hard to handle. So I think that I'm very glad that it's been a slower transition, and I look forward to kind of being able to take more on as college goes on.
Yeah, I feel like I'm growing up. I don't feel like I'm a grown-up / adult yet, but one, I think, key thing that I have learned is just like the decisions that you make really impact where you're going and where you end up. And so just figuring out those relationships too. And a number of my friends ended up like leaving college or like dropping out or transferring after freshman year. And just, I think a large part of that is just growing in those relationships and like moving on from like where and just seeing people for who they are, as well as moving off campus to like how those relationships will change and how you have to like learn how to cook for yourself, learning how to do your own laundry and not coming home to do laundry. And yeah, so just there's, especially like after you turn 21 and your friends turn 21, there's a whole new like open door of like new decisions that you'll have to make. And so getting that phase, you'll learn a lot.
I think one thing that's helped me, I was really lucky, and I have one of my roommates is a junior, and like he's one of the more responsible guys I know. He's just very brilliant, and like he kind of like took me under his wing like in the first like couple weeks of like just kind of like letting me know like what I need to do. And like I just encourage you to like find somebody like that, because a lot of my study habits, a lot of my like class habits, like he told me, like contrary to Kemper, like I've learned to like 8:30s and like he kind of taught me that, like he's like, you want to take earlier classes because like you'll get your day going, and then you'll have much more time to get stuff done instead of just sleeping for the first portion of your day. And so I've learned, like I would never have thought of that if it wasn't for him. And so like I really encourage you to seek somebody out who's gonna who you see has that responsibility and like really kind of has it together, and kind of just follow what they do, because if you do that, you're gonna more likely end up where they are. And so that's been very helpful to me.
And I also, just to add on to that, just find a professor if you're going to a small school. Like, find a professor you really kind of key into, and just like go to them during their office hours, because they're available and they're basically here to support you and here to be there for you. And I'm not sure if you see that at a larger school, but at SPU I definitely have my professors that I just like love to get out for coffee. Or one of my goals to do before I graduate is to run Green Lake with this like really old illustration professor. And so it's, yeah, just keying out those is definitely a really neat thing to go for too.
So now that you guys have the opportunity to look back over everything that you did in high school and think about things that you maybe would have done differently, what is the biggest single piece of advice that you can give to all of us who are still in high school?
Yeah, for me, it would be really delving deep into your relationships in high school. As Noah said, there's some guys that we thought we were close to, but when it came down to it, we really weren't. I think really kind of going beyond surface level with guys or girls is very important. And you might think that like it's usually a slow process, but it really pays dividends in the end, especially going into college.
Is this the biggest piece of advice for the post-high school or for in high school?
Both.
Both?
Answer
Okay.
both. We're on the last two.
Okay.
Okay. So my biggest piece of advice for post-high school and college life, being in college is one of the most selfish times of your life. It's talking about your grade, you're concerned about your grades, you're concerned about where you're living, your internships, your jobs, where you're gonna end up next. And it's really easy just to get caught up in yourself. And one thing that's helped me so much with like that, getting just caught up in myself, is Within the first week, one of the older guys forced me to go to Young Life with him and forced me to go start serving with him. And that has just been such a breath of fresh air in that time of seeing everybody just like concerned about themselves and when they're going to class and when they're doing this and internships and all that stuff. When you can take a step back and focus on other people and what other people need, it's just a breath of fresh air. And like going once a week to serve other people, you just get a better perspective on what your life looks like, and you just get to take a step back and really see like, I'm doing okay. Like it may suck right now, but in reality, I'm doing okay. And that's just like such an important thing that I've learned, and I was very fortunate to have somebody just teach that to me right off the bat, is go serve other people in college, even though nobody's doing it. Nobody really thinks about going to serve other people, because college is the most selfish time in your life, where people are just concerned about what they're doing.
Yeah, just for me, it's just the fact that like everyone is busy, but nobody really knows what busy is. And so I think just leaving room for being spontaneous, even though everyone is doing something. Like there's this times where like people are like, okay, let's drive to Voodoo Donuts in Portland and back in one night, and you do it, and you're like, wow, that's an awesome memory that I'm gonna remember 5 years from now, and we're gonna be so glad we did that. And so